From karate chopping SpongeBob into a pulp to launching half of Bikini Bottom into space, it's time to uncover why Sandy's brilliance spells trouble for Bikini Bottom. Bikini Bottom has its share of lawbreakers, but Sandy's pre-hibernation week is less a crime spree and more a death-defying circus act. Let's see who survives.
Sandy, I'm willing to sacrifice any of my time that I haven't already sold to Mr. Krabs to you.
When it comes to Sandy Cheeks, fun has a body count, or at least a serious injury list. Our favorite adrenaline junkie takes things way too far, ignoring the shit like basic decency and the law as she drags our spongy boy on a death march of extreme sports. What starts as, yay, let's bond, quickly spirals into reckless endangerment, public chaos, and some straight-up coercion. Sandy kicks things off with a simple plan. Cram a year's worth of adrenaline-fueled chaos into a week before her big snooze. SpongeBob agrees to join in, but this isn't your typical fun with friends scenario. It's more like Fear Factor Squirrel Edition.
Well, I'm glad, SpongeBob, because for the next 7 days, it's gonna be you, me, and these sweatbands.
Between sandboarding cliffs and getting yeeted off the sea needle, SpongeBob narrowly avoids becoming a sponge pancake multiple times. Sandy's first crime? Reckless endangerment. Ignoring every red flag SpongeBob waves, she pushes him into one life-threatening stunt after another. This isn't just crappy friendship, it's a potential misdemeanor. Imagine explaining to the judge, "Your Honor, I just wanted to find the hay in the needle stack." Fines? Sure. Jail time? Unlikely. But community service cleaning up the damage she caused? Fair game. SpongeBob finally hits his limit, and you'd think Sandy would get the bloody hint. Yep, instead she launches a citywide manhunt that throws Bikini Bottom into utter chaos. We're talking forced search parties in sulfur fields and poison urchin coves. Sandy even suggests sending children into dangerous spaces to find SpongeBob. That's a big no-no. Public disturbance? Absolutely. I mean, one dude even gets roasted or some crap. Bikini Bottom would have every right to slap her with fines or community service for disturbing the peace, not to mention traumatizing the locals. Then there's coercion. Sandy refuses to let SpongeBob set boundaries, steamrolling his very reasonable "please don't kill me" request. Coercion may sound like a big legal leap, but when your friend is literally hiding to avoid you, it's worth considering. A misdemeanor here could land her with up to a year in jail, though we'd bet on a smaller sentence, and mandatory friendship counseling instead. The townsfolk join SpongeBob under Patrick's rock to escape Sandy's rampage. She's fully lost her shit. And when SpongeBob finally gets thrown to the squirrel, he begs for mercy. Fortunately for him, Sandy's hibernation clock hits 0 and just in time. She falls asleep mid-hug, leaving SpongeBob and Bikini Bottom battered but alive. Crisis averted, sort of. Patrick's confusion at finding half the town under his rock.
Who are you people?
That's just the icing on this absurd, criminally negligent cake. Reckless endangerment? Check. Public disturbance? Check. Coercion? Abso-friggin-lutely. Sandy's actions in pre-hibernation week might be chalked up to squirrely enthusiasm, but in court, that enthusiasm would cost her serious fines. Or worse. And just when you thought Bikini Bottom couldn't get any wilder, here comes Sandy turning the beach into her own personal gladiator arena in surf and turf. Surfboards in danger, anyone?
I wanted to win the ship in a bottle contest tomorrow, but everyone I make is a disaster.
Yep, it's ship in a bottle time, but leave it to Sandy to turn this quaint hobby into a hurricane of chaos obsession and questionable life choices. It starts innocently enough. Sandy's got a ship in a bottle contest tomorrow, but every attempt ends up more wrecked than her furniture, which she's now gnawing on out of frustration. Therapy might help Sandy. Never mind that our spongy boy might need a dentist after his hot beverage. When SpongeBob offers up a random bottle for her project, hilarity ensues. Yep, our spongy boy just chucked the secret formula out of Sandy's window. Great going, SpongeBob. He gets the formula back, but Sandy's obsession with bottle perfection leads her straight into Mr. Krabs' greedy claws.
First lesson is math. I get half the prize money.
So first off, some disorderly conduct. Sandy enlists Krabs to help her with her bottle dreams. But their teamwork escalates into a smash and bash crafting war. Krabs destroys bottle after bottle, Sandy spirals into depression, and soon, this isn't a project, it's a public nuisance waiting to happen. Then there's the assault, when Mr. Krabs inevitably double-crosses Sandy by chopping down her tree to build a massive ship in a bottle. Sandy flips. She goes full rodeo, unleashing her submarine in hot pursuit. Acorns fly, submarines smash into boats, and the Krusty Krab takes a hit too. Honestly, it's a miracle the whole town isn't in shambles. At the contest, Krabs rolls in with his oversized monstrosity of a ship in a bottle, wrecking the entire venue, and all of the other entries, because subtlety is bloody overrated. Just as he's about to collect the prize money, Sandy's submarine crashes the party. Literally. She takes out Mr. Krabs' creation, destroys a fountain, and ends up rolling helmet first into the judge. And the winner of the contest? Because everyone else's ships are toast and she's technically the last bottle standing. So Sandy racks up Assault. Sandy's Acorn Assault and Submarine Smash Fest against Mr. Krabs are textbook assault cases. She better hope I was mad about my tree holds up in court. Disorderly conduct between the bottle-smashing chaos and her submarine rampage. Sandy's antics definitely disturbed the peace. Public nuisance? Check. Endangerment! Her recklessness endangered literally everyone within a 10-mile radius, including poor SpongeBob, who somehow always gets caught in these storms. Possible sentences? Assault? Depending on how much damage those acorns did, Sandy could face misdemeanor charges, maybe some fines, community service, or a small stint in the pokey if Mr. Krabs lawyers up. Disorderly conduct, fines, community service, or a stern get your life together from the judge. Endangerment, if the submarine antics count as negligence, she's looking at similar penalties. In the end, Sandy's obsession with bottles spirals so far out of control it leaves everyone battered, bruised, and bewildered. But hey, at least she got her trophy, and Krabs got stuck building her a new tree. Electrocuted into submission by Sandy herself, no less. Classic Sandy, turning crafting into chaos and always, always coming out on top. When Sandy decides to hibernate in Survival of the Idiots, it's not just her resting, it's her turning into the scariest snow beast Bikini Bottom's ever seen.
Ouch! Sorry, Patrick, but the door is slippery. It's frozen shut!
This icy mess kicks off with our boys storming over to Sandy's tree dome to play. Problem is, Sandy's already out cold, hibernating like a squirrel-shaped wrecking ball of fury. Also, Patrick, I think you need an update on boundaries, my dude. As they're frolicking like kids hyped up on sugar, they hear some unsettling sounds from Sandy's treehouse. Yup, turns out Sandy's hibernation snack fest has her looking like a Texas-sized marshmallow. Naturally, this doesn't deter our spongy boy and Patrick, who poke and prod her until she hulks out mid-dream, convinced they're the outlaws Dirty Dan and Pinhead Larry.
I warned you, Dirty Dan! Now you just crossed the border into Hurtville!
Cue Patrick and SpongeBob shitting themselves. She goes full Texas tornado on them before collapsing back into dreamland. Yep, Patrick said it, fun's over. You'd think that'd scare him off, but nope. Patrick's solution? Belly button lint earmuffs for her. Let that visual haunt you. With Sandy secured, the chaos truly begins. SpongeBob and Patrick bicker over who gets to play Dirty Dan, which escalates into an all-out brawl. Surprise, surprise, their ruckus knocks Sandy's earmuffs off, and now Sleepwalker Sandy is back with a vengeance. She tosses them around like rag dolls, but that's not even the worst of it. A freak snowstorm traps them inside the dome, leaving them no choice but to survive the winter. And by survive, I mean they do something so ridiculous it hurts. SpongeBob and Patrick decide the best way to stay warm is to rip off Sandy's fur. They literally skin their friend while she's asleep and fashion themselves into fursuits, strutting around like they're on the cover of Squirrel Vogue. But karma's a cruel mistress. Winter ends, Sandy wakes up, and she's bald. She pieces together the crime faster than Sherlock Holmes, and her wrath is swift. As punishment, SpongeBob and Patrick are turned into her living fur coat while she lounges and sips lemonade. Sandy's legal rap sheet? Negligent endangerment. Sandy might argue she left a warning video, but come on, lady, secure the tree dome. Leaving SpongeBob and Patrick to roam free in her icy death trap screams lawsuit waiting to happen. Assault, sleepwalking. Yes, she was unconscious, but her dream-induced rampages left SpongeBob and Patrick battered and bruised. Sleepwalking or not, those hits could land her a misdemeanor. Disturbing the peace. Sandy's chaotic environment fueled by acorn comas and unchecked aggression, definitely not peaceful, Bikini Bottom. Possible sentences. Negligent endangerment. A misdemeanor charge here could mean community service or fines up to $2,500. Assault sleepwalking. If charged, this could lead to similar penalties. 364 days max in jail and hefty fines. Disturbing the peace. Fines or community service to the tune of misdemeanor penalties. Yeah, if Bikini Bottom had any sense, they'd be shipping her off to county jail faster than you can say squirrel scandal. If Sandy's not inventing the next disaster, she's hosting one, and this time in A Flea in Her Dome, it's itchy, contagious, and gross. Grab your bug spray, things are about to get scratchy. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, or in this case, returned itchy and infested.
We'll throw Sandy, the mother of all welcome home parties! Patrick, to the tree dome!
The episode kicks off with SpongeBob and Patrick ugly crying like they just saw their favorite Krabby Patty get stepped on. Why? Because Sandy dared to leave for 2 whole days to visit Texas. The emotional devastation doesn't last long, though, because they channel their separation anxiety into planning the most chaotic welcome home party Bikini Bottom has ever seen. Balloons, banners, and... wait, why is Sandy scratching like she just rolled through poison ivy? Turns out our favorite squirrel scientist brought home an uninvited guest. Just one, you ask? Not for bloody long. After some quick introductions, the flea hops onto SpongeBob, giving him a quick bite before making a pit stop on Patrick. The flea is clearly playing tag, and it's winning. When Sandy finally gets her act together and slaps on a flea collar, it's too late. Those pesky parasites have already gone full flea nation. The dome becomes a war zone, with fleas spreading faster than gossip at the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob and Patrick devolve into pointing fingers, blaming each other and Sandy for this apocalyptic infestation. After retreating to her tree, yeah, it's not much safer up there, Sandy finally has a light bulb moment. If they're surrounded by fleas, why not drown the suckers in salt water? Logical, sure, but it also floods the entire dome, leaving Sandy, SpongeBob, Patrick, and a random crowd of Bikini Bottomites, who are apparently in the dome for reasons we're better off not questioning, soaking wet but flea-free. As the episode wraps up, SpongeBob delivers the most backhanded compliment ever.
It sure is good to have you back, Sandy!
Really, dude? Your return literally drowned everyone in salt water, but sure, let's call it good. So, what's the damage committed by Sandy? Negligent infestation. Sandy's flea problem doesn't stay her problem for long. She drags the entire town into her itchy nightmare, making her a public nuisance extraordinaire. Disturbing the peace. Between the fleas and the saltwater, Sandy's tree dome becomes ground zero for mayhem. The chaos isn't just limited to her dome, it's Bikini Bottom-wide pandemonium. Indirect assault. SpongeBob and Patrick get repeatedly chomped by fleas during their efforts to help Sandy. Unintentional? Sure. Painful? Also yes. And the sentence? Negligent infestation. Sandy could face pest control fines or community service for letting her science trip souvenir spiral into a town-wide disaster. Disturbing the peace. A misdemeanor charge could land her a fine or a flea-free dome cleaning duty. Indirect assault. This one's a stretch, but if SpongeBob and Patrick lawyer up, Sandy might owe them compensation for their, emotional and physical trauma. Nothing says welcome back like turning your homecoming into a flea-ridden fiasco. Well played, Sandy. Well played. When Sandy gets involved, a dangerous situation doesn't just get worse, it gets catastrophic. This time in Sandy, SpongeBob, and the Worm, it's a showdown with a monster worm, and guess who's dragging SpongeBob into it?
I'll catch your worm for ya. That is, if and you're willing to pay.
Ah, the Alaskan bullworm, a creature so terrifying it takes a bite out of everything in sight. Homes, boats, and apparently Bikini Bottom's collective sanity. The chaos starts in the dead of night when this gaping maw with teeth chomps SpongeBob's pineapple house. By morning, he's at the Krusty Krab spilling the tea to a crowd of terrified fish. So yeah, this thing eats everything, like Patrick eats his burgers. But what are they gonna do about it? Typical Bikini Bottom, panic, overreact, and suggest the most unhinged solutions imaginable. And Patrick's brilliant idea?
We should take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else!
Yeah, Squidward said it. Practical? Absolutely not. The townsfolk still can't agree on a solution until Sandy shows up, guns blazing, ready to take on the beast herself. So, turns out the worm ate her tail and she's got a tail to settle. Obviously, our spongy boy, being the cautious worrywart, pleads with her to reconsider, but Sandy's already halfway to the worm's lair by the time his argument hits her bloody squirrel ears. SpongeBob chases Sandy into the worm's cave, begging her to turn back, but Sandy's got that Texas pride that isn't about to back down. She wrestles the worm and ties it in a neat little knot, all while beaming with victory. But, plot twist. That's right, the entire cave is the worm, complete with eyes, teeth, and a look that says, "You messed with the wrong Alaskan nightmare." Maybe SpongeBob wasn't being dramatic after all, huh, Sandy? It's too late now, though. The worm's awake, angry, and ready for a throwdown. What follows is a ridiculous chase sequence complete with SpongeBob gloating, Sandy swinging them to safety with a paperclip and string, MacGyver who, and the worm taking a nosedive off a cliff. While Sandy and SpongeBob are high-fiving each other, the worm plummets directly onto the freshly relocated Bikini Bottom, crushing the entire town. The episode ends with the worm groaning a pitiful ouch, leaving us all to wonder why these fish people never learn. So here's what Sandy's shit show earned her. Reckless endangerment. Sandy insisted on taking on the Alaskan bullworm solo despite SpongeBob's repeated warnings. Her gung-ho attitude put everyone, including herself, in danger. Assault. She literally beats the worm's tongue into bloody submission. Granted, she didn't know it was just the tongue, but still, not a great look. Disturbing the peace. Her worm-wrangling antics caused pandemonium, both during the fight and in the aftermath when the worm demolishes the relocated Bikini Bottom, which means her sentence for the crimes looks something like reckless endangerment. Sandy should face misdemeanor charges for putting herself and SpongeBob in harm's way with potential fines or community service. Assault! If the worm decided to press charges. Hey, anything's possible in Bikini Bottom. Sandy might owe it some reparations. Disturbing the peace. The destruction of Bikini Bottom post-worm squashing could land Sandy another fine or mandatory cleanup duty. Moral of the story, don't mess with the Alaskan bullworms, or maybe just don't trust Sandy to handle anything remotely dangerous. After the chaos of Sandy turning Bikini Bottom into a worm-filled wasteland, you'd think she'd cool it, right? Nope. In Karate Choppers, she trades giant worms for all-out hand-to-hand combat, proving once again that peace and safety are just suggestions to her.
I'm gonna get you tomorrow, SpongeBob!
We kick things off with them sparring in SpongeBob's house, delivering brutal karate chops while giggling like toddlers on a sugar high. Sandy teases SpongeBob with a promise to ambush him the next day, setting the stage for a chaos crap fest. The next morning, SpongeBob's paranoia is cranked up to 11 as he suspects Sandy might strike anywhere, even at the bargain mart. So, he strikes first. Their karate antics cause a scene so outrageous it's a miracle the store doesn't slap them with a lifetime ban. Sandy even weaponizes SpongeBob's tongue with a bottle of volcano sauce to force him into submission. If this isn't a cry for intervention, what is? But the real trouble starts at the Krusty Krab. Yeah, so Krabs, the only semi-rational adult here, loses his temper and lays down an ultimatum. No more karate or SpongeBob's fired. Naturally, Sandy shows up moments later for round 3, and before SpongeBob can explain, she's already mid-chop. Mr. Krabs witnesses the whole mess and immediately fires SpongeBob, leaving him sobbing and doing laps around the restaurant like a dramatic toddler who just dropped his ice cream cone. Feeling guilty, Sandy confronts Krabs and convinces him to give SpongeBob another chance. The catch? They both have to quit karate cold turkey. Of course, this pact lasts about 5 minutes, actually less than. A picnic at Seashell Park devolves into a deli nightmare when the duo karate chops their way through every piece of bloody bologna in sight, eventually building a mountain of sandwiches. Krabs catches them red-handed amidst the carnage, surrounded by a park that now looks like a food fight war zone. At this point, you'd think SpongeBob's job is toast, but Krabs has a capitalist epiphany. Instead of firing them, he puts SpongeBob and Sandy's karate skills to work in the Krusty Krab kitchen. They're now a hyper-efficient patty-making duo, slicing and dicing ingredients faster than Squidward can roll his eyes. Mr. Krabs is thrilled because, of course, it's raining money. Squidward, not so much. He ends the episode with his usual snark, wishing he could karate chop everyone out of existence.
I hate all of you.
Crimes committed by Sandy? Assault! Engaging in over-the-top karate battles with SpongeBob that involve using his tongue as a weapon. Honestly, this would be grounds for a restraining order in the real world. Destruction of property. The Bargain Mart probably had to restock half its inventory after their fight. Let's not forget the carnage at Seashell Park either. Disturbing the peace. Loud, chaotic karate sessions disrupt Bikini Bottom residents wherever they go. There's no hiding from this martial arts madness. Potential sentences: assault. Misdemeanor charges might apply if any injuries occurred, with possible fines or community service. Destruction of property. Sandy could be liable for damages at both the Bargain Mart and Seashell Park, facing fines or restitution. Disturbing the peace. Fines and community service could also result from their very public brawls. Just leave it to Sandy to get you so hooked on karate that you end up fired, fined, or banned from every public space in Bikini Bottom. We've barely recovered from Sandy karate chopping her way through Bikini Bottom, and now she's aiming higher, literally. In Sandy's Rocket, her latest brilliant idea takes Bikini Bottom's safety problems to a whole new atmosphere. This time her crime spree starts with something deceptively wholesome: science.
Don't go near him, Patrick. Can't you see this is all a trick? The aliens are projecting our memories onto the environment.
She builds a rocket ship, planning a harmless trip to the moon. But as always, chaos is never more than a SpongeBob away. When SpongeBob begs to join the lunar adventure like the little kid he is, Sandy denies him like the responsible scientist she sometimes pretends to be. After all, she's still salty from that whirlybird incident. WTF, why are there so many dang graves? Maybe we need to investigate our Spongy Boy next. But SpongeBob's incessant nagging works and she caves. One, don't touch anything later, and we're off to the races. So obviously SpongeBob has extraterrestrials on the brain, and Sandy doesn't seem to smell the moon rocks here because she's too focused on her science. After trying to get some shut-eye and failing miserably, Patrick comes along, and you can only guess where this goes. Oh, Patrick, you just gotta derail everything by spraying alien repellent and playing with the buttons like a toddler in a cockpit. In true SpongeBob fashion, these two don't just mess things up, they hijack the rocket, accidentally launch it, and somehow still believe they've landed on the moon when they crash back into Bikini Bottom. And that's when the real fun begins. Sandy finally shows up. But yeah, SpongeBob and Patrick are already back in Bikini, and she's on the moon. Why the hell does she need a rocket anyway? Whatever. Armed with Sandy's net gun, SpongeBob and Patrick start capturing aliens, aka innocent residents of Bikini Bottom. Let's break this down like a court case because the crimes are stacking up faster than SpongeBob's mistakes. Negligent endangerment. Sandy left her rocket unsupervised, knowing full well SpongeBob and Patrick are chaos magnets. Seriously, who builds a high-tech spacecraft and just leaves it lying around? Unlawful detention. The entire population of Bikini Bottom gets locked up under the delusion they're aliens. False imprisonment much? Destruction of property. Oh, and let's not forget the collateral damage from launching and crashing Sandy's rocket, which they've now repurposed as a floating intergalactic prison. I mean, yeah, they did it, but Sandy let them do it. Sandy catches up to them to set the record straight, but these two are so convinced she's an alien that they net her too, dubbing her Ms. Alien Pants. The chaos crescendos when Patrick tries to capture SpongeBob, but being Patrick, he ends up capturing himself instead. SpongeBob restarts the rocket to return home, only to realize their colossal mistake when they crash on the actual moon and see Earth from the window. Cue the ominous final shot, the entire town locked in the cargo holds, creepily uniting in one final threat. For Sandy, this episode showcases her blend of brilliance and irresponsibility. Sure, she's a genius, but leaving a rocket unsupervised in a town full of numpties? That's practically inviting disaster. Between negligent endangerment and the property destruction from her poorly managed experiment, Sandy might be in for some hefty fines, or a court-mandated science safety course. Negligent endangerment, like it might result in up to 364 days in jail and fines up to $2,500. Unlawful detention. Depending on the jurisdiction, this could lead to misdemeanor charges with corresponding penalties similar to those above, including fines or community service. Destruction of property. If any damage occurred due to their actions, this could also lead to misdemeanor charges with fines or restitution required for any damages caused. And SpongeBob and Patrick? Let's just say they better have some serious alien insurance for what's coming next. You'd think Sandy might take a break, but not in Texas. Her homesickness sparks yet another wave of chaos, complete with brawls and a lasso showdown.
Wish I was in Texas, prettiest place in the world. Oh no.
It all starts innocently enough at Goo Lagoon, where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy are having a Sandy good time. I just couldn't help myself, so bite me. Sandy crafts a picture-perfect Texas out of sand, but before she can bask in its Lone Star glory, devastated, Sandy retreats, homesickness hitting her like a truck full of barbecue and cowboy hats. SpongeBob decides to cheer Sandy up by blindfolding her and leading her back to her tree dome, because obviously the best cure for homesickness is being reminded you're not home. Sandy predictably is not impressed. She bursts into tears, belts out a country song about how much she misses Texas, and turns Bikini Bottom into a crying, sobbing mess in the process. Seriously, her voice hits harder than a roundhouse kick. Determined to lift her spirits, SpongeBob and Patrick come up with a plan. A Texas-themed surprise party at the Krusty Krab plan. But when they show up at her tree dome to invite her, Sandy drops a bombshell. She's packing up and heading back to Texas for good. SpongeBob pleads with her, but her mind is made up. She boards a bus, leaving behind a stunned friend and one very confused starfish. Patrick, king of tactlessness, decides this is the perfect moment to trash talk Texas. He loudly declares,
Yeah, what's so great about dumb old Texas?
which is coincidentally the exact thing you don't say to a Texan. Seeing her fiery rage gives SpongeBob an idea. Use Patrick's insults to lure Sandy to her surprise party. So begins the Texas Roast Road Chase. SpongeBob and Patrick hurl increasingly ridiculous Texas slander while a raging Sandy tears through Bikini Bottom like a one-squirrel stampede. Patrick, thinking he's untouchable, says Texans are slow, which, I hate to break it to you, Patrick, is not true. Sandy gains on them like a cowboy on a mission, and Patrick's smug confidence quickly turns to sheer terror. Things get slice and dice fast. At the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob barely makes it to the door before Sandy lassos him. In her rage-fueled tug-of-war, she accidentally rips the front off the Krusty Krab. It's a touching moment, as Sandy realizes that home isn't about barbecue or pecan pie, though let's be real, those are solid perks. It's about the friends who care about you. Ah, but I'm still not recovered from the slice and dice, Sandy. The episode ends with Sandy deciding to stay in Bikini Bottom, her heart as full as a plate of Tex-Mex. But because Patrick can't help himself, he insults Texas again, prompting Sandy to get her lasso ready for round 2. Lesson learned, don't mess with Texas, and definitely don't mess with Sandy Cheeks. So Sandy has racked up quite the list of crimes. Assault, chasing SpongeBob and Patrick through town in a fit of rage and lassoing them like cattle, played for laughs, but in real life, pretty actionable. Disturbing the peace. Her furious rampage, complete with nuclear-level lasso explosions, is the definition of chaos. Destruction of property. Ripping off the front of the Krusty Krab? Yeah, not exactly covered under oopsies. Possible sentences: assault, misdemeanor charges with fines or community service. If the lasso caused actual injuries, we're talking steeper penalties. Disturbing the peace. Sandy's yelling, stomping, and nuclear lasso antics would rack up fines and possible court-mandated anger management. Destruction of property. Mr. Krabs would probably sue for repairs. Fines or restitution are likely, though knowing him, he'd just dock SpongeBob's pay. In total, Sandy should be getting 7 to 9 years of jail time, $50,000 to $72,500 in fines, and 200 to 300 hours of community service. The jury is out, people. This squirrel is a felon. You can take the squirrel out of Texas, but you can't take the Texas out of the squirrel. And for the love of barbecue, don't insult Texas unless you enjoy being hunted like a cartoon coyote. But hey, I'm just a guy who likes cartoons. Catch you in the next video.